Did you know that a single transfer didn't just change Liverpool, it changed the Premier League forever? When Anfield sanctioned a £75 million move for a centre-back, it wasn't just a record fee. It was a declaration that from this moment on, defending would become the foundation of winning. What was once mocked became a masterstroke, and the name behind it? Virgil van Dijk. From obscurity in Groningen to the summit of European football, he now stands on the edge of immortality, hailed by many as the greatest centre-back in Premier League history. But does he truly deserve that crown? And why do legends like Kompany, Ferdinand, and Terry, icons in their own right, offer him unquestioned respect? You're about to hear a story that rewrites every defensive standard the Premier League has ever known. Miss it, and you may never witness another Van Dijk again. Should Liverpool thank Philippe Coutinho for leaving behind a mountain of cash? Maybe. But the truth is, the Van Dijk plan was in motion long before that transfer ever happened. Yes, the Coutinho money helped, but Liverpool had already set aside the funds. The move for the Dutchman wasn't reactive, it was strategic, calculated. But it begs the question, where had Van Dijk been all these years? What took so long for the world to notice the man who would become the best defender on the planet? For a long time, he was just a name on the team sheet at Groningen. Then came Celtic, a league far removed from the pressures of elite competition. It wasn't until 2015, when Southampton brought him to the Premier League, that the world finally took notice. Within 2 seasons, he wasn't just promising, he was dominant. Suddenly, Van Dijk became the most sought-after defender in England. Chelsea, Manchester City, even Manchester United entered the race. And yet, it was Liverpool, through a mix of persistence, belief, and Jurgen Klopp's unshakable vision, who won. There was a moment when it looked like Van Dijk was bound for the Etihad, but Klopp held firm. He saw something others didn't, and Liverpool backed that vision with a world record £75 million offer. At the time, people laughed. But they're not laughing now, and Van Dijk proved every penny was worth it. Since then, others have spent more on defenders, but none have delivered what he did. There's no next Van Dijk waiting in the wings. He was the turning point. This was, without exaggeration, the single most pivotal signing of Liverpool's modern era. From anonymous talent to immovable icon, Van Dijk didn't just join Liverpool, he transformed them. Before Van Dijk, Liverpool were chaos wrapped in brilliance. Their identity? Score more than you concede. Rodgers' rock and roll football. Klopp's early days were no different. Wild pressing, breathtaking goals, but a defense that leaked soft, silly goals week after week. They were even nicknamed FC Robin Hood, stealing points from the Big Six and donating them back to relegation battlers. Klopp knew something had to change. He knew who could change it. When Van Dijk arrived in January 2018, the narrative flipped. He wasn't just a good defender, he was the cornerstone of a revolution. The end of "we'll score more than you" and the birth of "you shall not pass." That FA Cup debut, a goal against Everton, but more than that, it was the calmness, the leadership, the steel. No diving tackles, no drama, just presence. He didn't just defend, he elevated those around him. Lovren, Matip, Gomez, they all rose because of him. Before Van Dijk, Liverpool never had that. A commander, a conductor in defense, who brought order without killing the chaos. He brought discipline, but didn't destroy the fire. From 2018 onwards, Liverpool reached back-to-back Champions League finals and lifted the trophy in 2019. And here's the craziest part. They did it with a midfield of so-called average players. Henderson, Milner, Wijnaldum. Not one global superstar among them. And yet they stood firm against Messi, Neymar, Kane. Why? Because behind them stood a man you simply couldn't get past. In the 2018-19 season, Liverpool conceded just 22 goals in the league. The best defensive record in the Premier League. No more outscoring problems. They controlled them. That same season, they finished with 97 points. The next, 99 points. The title, a 30-year wait, over. And as Liverpool's attack evolved, from Salah, Mane, Firmino to Núñez, Diaz, Jota, and now Gakpo, Van Dijk remained constant. No one replaced him. No one could replace him. He was the anchor to all the evolution, the one irreplaceable figure in Klopp's system. Because Van Dijk wasn't just a great center-back. He redefined what it meant to be one, and he was the bedrock of every triumph Klopp ever achieved. Without him, maybe Liverpool would still be that exciting team. Fun to watch, thrilling in attack, but doomed to fall short in the moments that matter. But with him, they became something else. Champions. And Van Dijk, at the heart of it all. Every comparison like this sparks debate. But sometimes, to truly grasp how great Van Dijk is in the Premier League, you have to look at the very top. And that means naming two of the league's most iconic defenders, John Terry and Tony Adams. John Terry was your classic no-nonsense leader. Blood, sweat, and thunder. He'd throw his body in the way of shots and pop up like a striker to score from corners. Nearly 500 Premier League appearances, 41 goals, and over 200 clean sheets. 5 league titles, captaining one of the most defensively pragmatic sides English football has ever seen. He had Claude Makelele sweeping in front, Petr Cech guarding the goal, and Jose Mourinho masterminding a deep block defensive fortress. Van Dijk had none of that. He walked into a Liverpool side still learning how to press, a team that never truly knew how to control games without the ball, and yet he helped them keep nearly 100 clean sheets in just over 230 appearances. That's the difference. Then there's Tony Adams, the old-school general, loud, commanding, barking orders from the heart of defense. When Arsène Wenger arrived and transformed Arsenal into a team of elegance and flair, Adams had to evolve too. No more sitting deep like under George Graham. Now it was high lines, reading play, covering fullbacks who bombed forward. But Adams didn't need to spray long passes or build play. He just stood tall and shut threats down. Van Dijk? He does both. He's the wall and the architect. He stops attacks and starts them. One moment he's halting a counter, the next he's pinging a 40-yard pass into Salah's stride or finding Mané in space. That role didn't exist in Terry or Adams' eras. Now, take a look at the era Van Dijk's operating in. In today's Premier League, strikers are shape-shifting threats. Harry Kane with his IQ, Haaland with his power and pace, Vardy timing offside traps, Aguero dancing in tight pockets. Adams faced the likes of Alan Shearer, Andy Cole, Chris Sutton, all tough but mostly one-dimensional. Terry dealt with Rooney, Van Persie, Torres, talented, yes, but still operating in simpler systems. Terry was emotion, Adams was discipline. Van Dijk is control, calm in the chaos. In a league driven by speed, transitions, and tactical madness, he's the only one who seems to master it all. If Terry and Adams were the epitome of classic center-backs, then Rio Ferdinand and Vincent Kompany defined the modern breed. Composed, elegant, in command. Van Dijk and Ferdinand share many traits. Technically gifted, comfortable on the ball, confident in possession. But Van Dijk takes it up a level. His positioning and anticipation are so elite that he rarely even needs to tackle. In fact, during the entire 2018-2019 season, not a single player managed to dribble past him. Not once, an unprecedented stat for any center-back in Premier League history. Plenty of players and pundits have weighed in on this. Phil Jones of Manchester United once expressed his admiration when asked about Van Dijk. And Ferdinand himself admitted, "If I had to pick between the two of us, I'd go with Van Dijk. What he's done for Liverpool these past few years is just unbelievable. His presence, his skill set, both defensively and offensively, he'd shine in any era." Even Jurgen Klopp has compared Van Dijk to legends like Ferdinand, Jaap Stam, and Sami Hyypiä. "Virgil is the best defender in the world," Klopp once said. All of those legends had dips in form. But Virgil, he's almost unshakable. No one's perfect forever, but he's been vital for us, every single time. When it comes to Vincent Kompany, the comparison isn't just about defending. It's about leadership and spirit. Kompany was the soul of Manchester City, the emotional heartbeat of a team that rose to dominance under his guidance. But Van Dijk brought something else, a calm, unshakable presence that transformed Liverpool's backline. He led them to the Champions League in 2019 and the Premier League title in 2020. Even Company himself once said, "Van Dijk is the best centre-back in Premier League history." Yes, Van Dijk hasn't played as long as Ferdinand or Company, but his impact, both on Liverpool and on the Premier League as a whole, is undeniable. He's not just an outstanding defender, he's a man who changed the entire trajectory of a football club. Now let's talk about Nemanja Vidic, the only defender to ever win Premier League Player of the Season twice. The debate between Van Dijk and Vidic has lit up social media for years. And it's not a fairy tale rivalry. It's a clash of two very different archetypes. Vidic was ice-cold steel. He'd throw himself into any challenge, any danger, without hesitation. He was the face of an era when defending meant war. Remember 2008-9? He and Ferdinand built a wall that kept 14 straight clean sheets, a record still standing today. But Van Dijk had his own statement to make. When he joined Liverpool in 2018, they were leaking goals like a broken tap. By 2020, they were European champions, and then Premier League winners for the first time in 30 years. In the 2019-2020 season, Van Dijk played all 38 league games. Not a single player dribbled past him, not once. Vidic was the classic warrior. Van Dijk is the new age general. Neither is better. They're just perfect reflections of two different eras of defending. And if you ask the strikers who faced them, they'll tell you neither was easy to play against. So, is Van Dijk the greatest centre-back in Premier League history? It's an easy question to answer emotionally, but almost impossible to settle objectively. Because at the highest level, greatness isn't black and white. In 2019, Van Dijk came within just 7 points of winning the Ballon d'Or, the closest any defender has come in modern history. Only 4 defenders in the history of football have ever reached the top 2, Franz Beckenbauer and Matthias Sammer, both playing as liberos, Roberto Carlos, an attacking fullback, and Fabio Cannavaro, the rare, pure centre-back to win it. But here's the difference. Beckenbauer won the Euros in '72 and the World Cup in '74. Sammer won Euro '96. Carlos, World Cup 2002. Cannavaro, World Cup 2006. Van Dijk, no Euros, no World Cup, just a Champions League and Premier League. And still, he almost pulled it off. At his peak, Van Dijk could stand toe-to-toe with Cannavaro in 2006. But unlike Cannavaro, he sustained that level for years. No, he doesn't have the longevity of Paolo Maldini. But in the era of pressing, of blistering pace, of high defensive lines and intricate build-up play, Van Dijk thrived in the most intense league in the world. For nearly a decade, he's done it almost flawlessly. And what Van Dijk brings goes beyond stats or silverware. It's a feeling, a presence, the same aura we associate with icons like Ronaldo, Messi, or Neuer. He walks onto the pitch and something shifts. He stands tall, scans the field, locks eyes with the striker. And suddenly, the opponent's confidence melts away. They misstep, they second guess, they fail, and he hasn't even touched the ball yet. That aura, that psychological grip, is something even the greatest defenders rarely possess. Yes, we can debate the numbers, the trophies, the consistency, the peaks. You can make strong cases for Terry, Adams, Ferdinand, Company. But there's one thing that sets Van Dijk apart. No centre-back has ever made Premier League attackers feel more helpless than Virgil van Dijk. They don't lose the ball. They lose themselves before they even touch it. You don't have to agree he's the greatest, but you do have to admit, no one has ever made it look so effortless or so inevitable.